So I was reading this last week about funny things that couples have fought about. So if you've ever been in a relationship, you have your own stories. So I read about one story where the couple fought about candy corn because the husband was convinced that it was a vegetable. Yep, so all right, we're going to let that one go, right? So they were obviously, probably just doesn't know what it is, or maybe he's just that kind of guy. So anyway, but one of my favorite fights was about grilled cheese. So true story, this couple, they'd been married a short time, and she was making grilled cheese for supper that night and burning it. And he was standing right next to her, giving her so many helpful little tidbits about how to do this better. And finally, in a moment of just outrage, she slammed the spatula down and said, "If you think you could do it better, you just do it," and stormed to her bedroom, she said, slammed the door to pout. And they had one of their first big fights over grilled cheese. So again, if you've ever been in a relationship, you know that you're going to have your own grilled cheese or candy corn fight at some point if you haven't already, where you're like, years later you look back and you're like, what were we even doing? What were we fighting about? And the fight happens, and what takes place is that communication breaks down, right? I mean, that's ultimately what's taking place, is there's been a breakdown in communication, which is what this series has been all about. We're finishing a series today we started 5 weeks ago, and it was all about the 4 things that will be toxic, not only to your relationship, but they're toxic to communication. And we've covered these 4 things, and they're all from Dr. John and Julie Gottman. They are relationship experts. They've studied relationships for over 40 years out in Seattle, and they've identified 4 things. You let these in, and they will kill your relationship. The first one is criticism, right? So criticism is not where we're talking about the issue, the burnt sandwich. But now we've gone beyond it and attacked the person. What kind of ding-dong burns a grilled cheese, right? And now I've attacked you personally. It's not about what you did. It's about you. And they said criticism is like the gateway to all the other ones. So once you start criticizing the person, then all of a sudden it's a short step to contempt. It's like, are you kidding me? And contempt puts you above them. You are better than them. I mean, I could make a grilled cheese sandwich when I was 3 years old. I bet I could get half the kindergartners right now in here and they could do it better than you, right? All of a sudden you're better, they're lesser. That's contempt. That's what it sounds like. It's toxic, obviously. Communication will break down. The relationship breaks down. It leads naturally to this. Oh, if you think you can do it better, I was following the directions. I was doing what you told, right? So there's a natural defensiveness that emerges when criticism shows its ugly head. And when contempt shows its ugly head. And so defensiveness can lead naturally to what we call stonewalling, which is where we just shut down. We're done. We don't listen. We don't talk. What does she do in the grilled cheese sandwich? She storms off into the bedroom, slams the door, done. And she even called it pouting. It's a very natural progression. These are all toxic to communication, and they are toxic in conflict, and they are toxic to love. They will destroy love. Now, the interesting thing is I think that most people think that if you really are going to have a great marriage or a great relationship with anybody, because these apply to relationships in general, that you won't have any of these show up. They won't be a part of your relationship. Well, I have really, really good news for all of us. In their 40 plus years of research, they don't find couples that don't have all of these. Now, this is really good news. Even the best relationships that they've studied in 40 years, those things show up. It's what they learned is that in great marriages, they still have ugly screaming matches. It's like, no, if we have a great marriage, that'll never happen. That's not what the research says. They still say mean things to each other. They still get critical and defensive. They still engage in stonewalling. But there's a difference between people that go on to have great relationships, specifically a marriage relationship, and people who have these things and the relationship falls apart. And the difference is what they call repair. Great marriages, great relationships know how to repair after those things show up. That's the difference. They define repair this way: is any statement or action, silly or otherwise, that prevents negativity from escalating out of control. So it's not that you're not going to mess up. It's not that you're not going to have conflict. It's not that all relationships do. All great relationships do. It's that when it takes place, the relationships that are going to get better, they know how to repair it. Do you know how to repair conflict in your relationship? Is that something you know how to do? Would you, when you look back at your conflicts that you've had in your relationship, can you see, tell story after story of times when you fixed it and repaired it and moved on? Or are some of these kind of still open wounds and topics that you don't even talk about to this day? So we're finishing this series today called Relationship Restart. We're going to talk about this. How do we repair a damaged relationship? Because this is going to happen. So I want to ask you to open your program, take out the notes you'll find inside. Grab your pen if you haven't done that already. Of course, welcome to those of you watching online. Love that you're watching. If you go to our website at pennhillchurchlife.com, you can get these notes as well. So let's jump right into this. And of course, you know me, we're skipping point number 1. Let's jump down right away to point number 2. Just for time's sake, we have to start here. So number 2, you got to identify what kind of problem you're dealing with. What kind of problem it is. What kind of problem? And this was all new to me. So much of what we're going to be talking about today is stuff that I either learned prepping for this or I've learned over the last few years. And my wife and I really work hard on this subject. So I remember one time, so remember what I said? Even great relationships fight. So my wife and I fight. I'm just getting that out there right away in case this is a surprise for any of you. So I remember one time the biggest fight we had. Oh my goodness. Biggest fight we had. I had something I wanted to bring up to her. I thought it would be a simple 2-minute conversation. I thought I would talk about how I had felt and she would go, oh honey, I'm so sorry you felt that way, and listen, understand, and validate, and that it would be over like that, and on we go. So I brought it up. Well, that's not what happened. Nope. I triggered something inside of her and she lit. And then all of a sudden she's coming at me and I'm just trying, well, I just want to be heard. Well, I want to be heard. It went on for 2 days. It was a big one. A big one. You ever have something like that in a relationship where all of a sudden it went nuclear right now? It's like, I didn't see that coming. So what do you do in situations like that when you're going to have those? Well, I want to show you this verse. Actually, the Apostle Paul, who wrote half the books of your New Testament, half the books of our New Testament, was single. And he was constantly saying, and it's so anti-American, because in America, the highest value is to get married, right? So all of a sudden, oh, it's great, I've achieved it, I've gotten married. And yet Paul was a follower of Jesus. He said, listen, get married, that's fine, but if you can be single, then the only focus you have is Jesus and his will. So it's better if you can be single. But he said, if you can't, if you want to get married, go ahead and get married. And then he valued singleness so much, but he said, hey, listen, those who get married at this time will have troubles, and I'm just trying to spare you those problems. It's like, listen, you will have less problems if you stay single. And that's what I'm trying to do for you. Isn't that funny? I mean, it's just so direct. I love how direct the Bible is sometimes when talking about these subjects. It's like, and so what the Gottmans learned is in their 40 plus years of research, they observed 3 different kinds of problems. First problem, first kind, solvable problems. Solvable problems. All of us have them. In any relationship, remember, I'm applying this to a marriage relationship, but it applies to family relationships. It applies to work relationships. It applies in any relationship you're in. Parenting relationships, you have problems that are solvable. So they're not, as it says on your notes, there's no deeper meaning. There's no trigger underneath this. It's just a simple solution can be found and maintained. So my wife found this guy who does marriage videos on Instagram. And she sent me a little clip this week of one. It was so timely. Talk about solving a solvable problem. Now, I want to warn you, when I was prepping this, half the time the words would get off a little bit. Like, he's talking, and so, but don't worry, all the words are printed on the screen, so ignore that if you need to. So here's a solvable problem. Take a look at this.
Hey, can I talk to you for a sec? I feel like I've noticed that lately you've been leaving your dishes in the sink. Would you mind putting those in the dishwasher for me? You know what? You're right. I'm sorry. Listen, I really don't want to fight. Wait, what? No, you're absolutely right. I've been forgetting to go back and finish that. That was wrong. You don't deserve for that responsibility to be all on you. You're not going to tell me how stupid this is? What? Why would I tell you how? I don't know. I just thought that's what's supposed to happen. I tell you my feelings, you shut down or explode, and then tell me nothing you do is ever good enough. No. I mean, I'm glad you can tell me things that bother you. You are? Of course. Why? Because I love you, and I trust you, and I don't want you feeling neglected. I mean, you weren't being disrespectful. You were just being honest about your expectations and needs to feel valued and connected in this relationship. I mean, if I had a concern or a complaint, isn't that how you would respond to me? Well, yeah. Well, then don't you deserve the same respect and consideration that you give? Yes. Great. Well, consider it done. I'll make a reminder on my phone just to make sure I don't forget. Thank you. So we're good? Is there anything else that you want to talk about? No. Yeah, we're good. Is this how this is supposed to go? Because this is way better.
Oh, man. Way better, right? And that's how our solvable problems go, right? Oh, it's how they theoretically should go. So, but of course, some of the times we're talking about issues, and but seriously, like putting your dishes in the dishwasher, that's a solvable problem. Yeah, I know that for some it doesn't seem like it, but it is actually a solvable problem. But then there are problems that are bigger than solvable problems, and this is what they uncovered, and these are what they call perpetual problems. So they are not solvable, because they're rooted in the differences that people have in their personalities or their needs in life, and those don't just change. So you think about the list of perpetual problems that they could see in their laboratory for 40 years of working with couples. Frequency of sex. Huge perpetual problem in relationships. Spending habits. Isn't it uncanny how many times a spender marries a saver? Isn't that uncanny? How rare it is when two savers marry. So rare, right? How about family ties? You know, where are we going to spend the holidays? Where are we going to go this Christmas? So you can have differences about how much time to spend with each family member. And it's like who gets to be around who, when. And it's huge. There's perpetual problems, right? Socializing. Isn't it amazing how many times extrovert marries an introvert? And the introvert comes home from work, they're tired, they don't want to go out, and the extrovert wants to go out. They want to have people over. Let's have some people over. Let's party. And they're like, no. Right? That's a perpetual problem. They're never going to need the amount of socialization that the other one does, right? They're not going to flip a switch. They're not broken. Introverts aren't broken. They're just different. Right? So that's a perpetual problem. It's never going to change. Tidy versus disorganized. Isn't that a perpetual problem? And some of you know exactly what that's like because you're the tidy one and you're married to the non-tidy one. And you're constantly seeing those things. And again, they're just never going to see the mess that you see. Time management. How big is this one in relationships? How many times have people who are, define what's your definition of on time? Is 15 minutes early on time? Is on time on time? Is 15 minutes late on time? There are plenty of people in those camps. And so that's a perpetual thing. And you know it. Some of you know this because you are with a person who is a always late person. Always. And it creates some conflict, right? Perpetual issues. Family planning. You want to have 1 kid, no kids, 3 kids, 6 kids? How many you want to have? Huge issues in relationships over this one, right? That one can be a really, really painful one. So my wife and I, we have more than 2 perpetual problems, but we have 2 big ones that regularly come up. See if you can relate to any of these. This is the first one. The first perpetual problem in our home is this one right here. It's the thermostat. See, I am amazed that science has created these incredible things called air conditioners. Amazing. And they also made furnaces. Now, what these magic boxes do is that when it gets hot, you can turn on the air conditioner. It'll make it cooler. And when it gets cold, you turn on the furnace, it'll make it warmer. Incredible. So I don't have to be hot and I don't have to be cold. I just push a button and it'll make that go away. Wow, that's awesome. So that's what I need to feel comfortable in my home. By the way, all the kids agree with what I need. And then there's my wife's perspective on it. It's just like, hey, look, I can't see my breath anymore. Why are you turning the heat up? It's like, what's the problem here? Just put on 7 more layers. We're okay. Your snow boots are right there. I don't understand. Or it's like in the summer, it's like, look, I'm barely sweating at all. It's 95 in here. That's fine. I don't know why you need to turn the air down. It's like, all right, thanks. So that's a perpetual thing. We will always have that difference. We will always want it at a different temperature. And some of you know exactly what that one's like, right? How about this one? The other one that is so interesting interesting to me, and I didn't understand this, is there is difference in the definition of clean. Did you know that? There's a difference. There's like gradients within this. There's like clean, and then there's way beyond clean. So I made a rule. When Shannon and I got married, I said, listen, if you're going to cook for me, then I will clean for you. So if she makes the meal, I clean up. So that means I empty the dishwasher, load the dishwasher, wash any dishes that don't fit in the dishwasher, and wipe down the counters. And I do that because she feeds me. So it seems like you're going to give me good food, I'm going to reward you. You don't have to do the cleaning. So it's interesting. That's where the definition of distinction in cleanliness emerged. So I remember one night I was finishing up, washing it, everything's done, wiped the counter down, and I turn around to leave, and she's sitting at the counter, we have this counter in the kitchen, she's just looking at me. It's like, where are you going? I'm like, well, I'm done. I'm going to go somewhere else. And she's like, you think this is done? I'm like, what? I thought it was. And she's like, come here, look at this. See this electron microscope right here? Take a look. And when I zoom way down in here, come here, look, put your eye on the eyepiece right here. See this? That speck of dust. How in the world can you walk away from that speck of dust and call it clean, right? Now get down on your hands and knees and put your nose 2 inches from the, do you see that crumb right there? Why did you not clean that crumb up? Right? What's going on here? She knew I was going to do that. She gave me permission. Right, so this is, right, we have differences in how we define clean. Here's the reality. I will never, ever in my life notice dust on the baseboards of the house, ever. Most days I don't even know we have baseboards. So, right, I don't notice it, don't see it, never will. That's what we're talking about. Those are perpetual differences. But she's wired to see it and notice it, and it bothers her. So, okay, so those are perpetual problems. They're not going to go away. Matter of fact, here's what their research shows. I'm sorry, this is on your notes. You can put this down. 69% of all of the problems you have in your relationships are perpetual problems. They're not going away. She's not going to flip a switch and all of a sudden not care. And I'm not going to flip a switch and start to notice. I'm not going to flip a switch and be less comfortable when it's really hot in the house. Right? That's not going to change. Those are perpetual problems that are going to go on. So it is important that you understand that that's a big part of what we deal with. Matter of fact, I loved what this one psychologist said. Look at this. He said, when choosing a long-term partner, you will inevitably be choosing a particular set of unresolvable problems. That's what you're choosing. It's like, which set of unresolvable problems do I want to sign up for? So, because they're not going to be resolved. Those things are not going to change. So with perpetual problems, then it is important that you understand, first off, you all have them. I do too. We do too. So we understand this and we know what to do. It's interesting. In Christian relationships, in the Bible, in the book of Romans, there's a whole chapter about what to do when you have these unresolvable problems. It's called Romans chapter 14. It's a great chapter in the Bible. And one of the things he says in there relates directly to our relationships, not just in the church, but with each other. He says in Romans 14, he says, listen, I want you to accept other believers who are weak in the faith. And then look at this phrase, don't argue with them about what they think is right or wrong. That's the goal. I'm never going to convince her that it's clean enough, or she's never going to convince me that leaving it 85 degrees in the summer inside the house is fine. She's never going to convince me. I'm never going to convince her. So with perpetual problems, we're not going to argue about them. Instead, here's what we're going to do. We're going to see it for what it is. This is an unsolvable, right? This is one of our perpetual ones. This goes in the category of perpetual. We're not going to be able to solve this. And then the second thing is we're going to listen respectfully to each other. And we do. I mean, I'm obviously hamming it up here. But the reality is we listen. It's like I understand her perspective, she understands my perspective. And we accept those differences. We just accept it. This is who she is, and this is who I am. And that's not going to change. And then we try and figure out, how do we create a win-win? So how do we make it so that we're both comfortable in these situations? So with the temperature, the reality is I get a little bit more of a win than she does, because I get to adjust the thermostat. But in the kitchen, when it comes to how she wants it cleaned, then I make the adjustment. And if she wants me to take the mat out of the sink after I'm done cleaning and scrub under the mat so that that's clean too, okay. Never would have dawned on me to look under there. It's like it's a mat. It's covering everything. But okay, that's what she wants. So that's what we do. So how do we create a win-win? That's what you're after. And the big part of this is we don't look down on each other. I don't think less of her because she notices dust on a baseboard. And she doesn't think less of me because I don't. Because what we're trying to avoid is the third kind of problem. It's this: gridlocked perpetual problems. This is where those problems become toxic. And chances are all of you have, if you're married, you probably and you have topics that you know you cannot talk about as a couple. That's this. Do you have subjects that are just off limits in your relationship? You don't bring them up. You don't even try because you know it's just going to be so bad. It's going to be damaging. That's gridlocked. That's what you're trying to avoid in relationships. So that's where, again, we remember these rules. We see it for what it is. It's unsolvable. We listen respectfully. We accept the difference, and we try and figure out how we can make it a win-win. We never look down on them. All right, if you have gridlocked ones, I don't have time to teach on it, but on the back of your notes, there's a whole page of signs of gridlock and then what to do about it. I don't have time to teach on it more because I really want to get into the repair piece of it. So what we obviously have to do is learn how to repair and de-escalate when these things start going bad. Once you start talking about a problem and it starts going bad, that's when we need to learn how to repair it and de-escalate it. Take it back down again. So one time, the Gottmans had this couple in their relationship lab, and they were watching them. And they were doing the fight. You know, one of the things that they made them do is have a fight about something that was a big issue in their relationship, and they had to try and solve it. And so the guy was a chemist, and he had weird hours. Because like if his wife, they had small children, and his wife always wanted family meals together. I want you home at a set time so we can have a family meal together. It was super important value to her. The problem was when you're in the middle of a chemistry thing, you may not always be able to, hey, just let that test tube run, I'll get back to it tomorrow, right? Because I got to go home for dinner. It doesn't always work that way. And so they were having this fight about this issue. And the wife was trying to say, listen, sometimes it's so hard to make the kids wait for you. When you're late, I mean, these kids, they're young, they get hungry and they start complaining. And he's like, well, can't you just give them a snack? Wrong thing to say. Because she said, she went like that. It's like, of course I've given them a snack. It's like what you don't want to see. Like, thanks, Captain Obvious. A snack? What is this amazing thing called a snack? Wow, I've never would have thought to give them a snack while we're waiting for you to get home. And he immediately saw in her body language the rolling of the eyes. That was the wrong thing to say. And so he made a repair attempt. And the way he did it was he looked at her and he did this. This huge toothy grin. And she laughed. And he apologized. Once she laughed, he apologized. And that's how they repaired it. Now, I'm 99.99999% sure that if the next time my wife is angry at me, I give her one of those big toothy grins, that will be the wrong decision to make. I'm 99.999% that will be more conflict. So I'm not doing that. But in their relationship, it works. That was a repair effort, and it worked. It softened it, and she was able to accept his apology, and on they went. So that's what you need to learn how to do. So here's some stuff that we've learned. My wife and I, by the way, take this part of this so incredibly seriously. We don't want little things to build up in our relationship. We will have conflict, we will have fights, and we want to repair those fights. We do not want little things to become big things, and we don't want to leave open wounds in our relationship. We want to repair them. So we take this so seriously. Matter of fact, if you go to the Gottman's website, you can sign up for their Instagram stuff. My wife does that. She reads their Instagram stuff. I read I get a daily email. I can't tell you how many things we've learned by learning from people who know this really well. So here's the first thing that we've really learned about this, about repairing, is institute a remote control. Put in your relationship a remote control. And yes, it's exactly what it sounds like, a remote control. And the need for this is so significant. If you've ever read the small little book in the New Testament called the book of James, James is a really practical author. And at one point, he talks about how much we need this remote control I'm going to tell you about. Look at what he said. He said, indeed, we all make many mistakes. Isn't that like the understatement of the century? We all make many mistakes. If we could control just our tongues, we'd be perfect and could also control ourselves in every other way. But of course, we can't. You think about this. When was the last time your tongue got you in trouble in a relationship? When was the last time you said something and it was thoughtless? Or you said something and it was inconsiderate? Or invalidating of their emotions? Or a selfish thing? Right? So our tongue gets us in trouble, the Bible says, all the time. And that's where we need to be able to have a remote control in the relationship to repair it. So I remember, I think it was my wife who found this article from Gottman's and printed it off, and it was all about this. So if you think about a remote control, look at all the buttons it's got. Right? It's got pause. You can hit pause. It's got stop. It's got rewind. How valuable is that in a fight? So my wife and I read this article, we laughed about it, we're like, okay, let's do this. This is going to be part of our relationship. We have now instituted a remote control policy. So I remember not long after we had this conversation, I made a mistake, like the book of James says. If we could control our tongue, we'd be perfect. Yeah, we can't. And I made a mistake and I said something wrong, and I could tell immediately on my wife, I just did something wrong. And I said, wait. Can I hit rewind? Can I hit rewind? Can I rewind that? It's like... And, that's a repair attempt. And my wife has the choice to say yes or no. And thankfully, every time we've used this, the answer has been yes. And because sometimes isn't it true, sometimes you say the wrong thing? Or you say it the wrong way. And you're like, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it to come across that way. And that's why you have to have this in place. So my wife uses it with me. She'll say, I remember one time, oh man, she was really upset. She could see that she'd hurt me bad, and she immediately said, wait, I need to hit rewind, please. Please let me rewind this. And of course, yes, you can rewind it, because we all make mistakes. My favorite remote control story with her, though, is one time I said something stupid, and she got mad, and before I could even do anything, she said, oh, you better hit rewind. It's like, okay, that's one way to use the remote. I'm like, where's the remote? Who's got the remote? Let's go, hit the rewind quickly, right? So that's one of my favorite stories about this. It's super helpful because it's true that you're going to make mistakes, right? Like the book of James says, we all make many mistakes, and we don't always control our words. So this is a tool to get us back on track. It's like, I'm going to hit rewind on that and try again. So that's the first thing. We really love that principle. The second thing is hit the brakes. If you want to repair and de-escalate, don't just hit rewind. Hit the brakes. Hit the stop button on your remote. I was reading in the book of Psalms this week, and I read this verse. How relevant is that to this verse? Look at this. Don't sin by letting anger control you, but look at this. Think about it overnight and remain silent. Stop talking. Sometimes the most spiritual thing we can do is be quiet. We're done talking. And even to the point where, like it says, sometimes you need a long break before you come back to the subject again. Otherwise, anger is going to control you. And that's what you don't want. So if you missed last week's message, we talked a lot about this. We said that you're watching in the relationship, for any relationship that you're in, you're watching for this feeling of being emotionally flooded. And everybody floods at different levels. So the idea of flooding is all of a sudden you're like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. What's wrong? And in your mind, you're thinking things like, everything I say right now is going to be wrong. I could be wrong about this. I don't want to make things worse. And you feel defensive and you feel like pulling away, that's flooding. And we said last week that that's the time to hit, if you're taking the remote again, that's the time to hit the stop button. And we said take at least a 30-minute break. But the Bible says sometimes it needs to be longer than 30 minutes, right? Sometimes it needs to be overnight. You need a long enough break that you calm down. That's the goal. You've got to get your anger back under control. Because our anger is not going to be helpful in resolving the problems. And it's really important that you hit the brakes here, right? In the relationship conflict, not here. Hitting the brakes here is too late. You want to hit it here before you go over the edge, right? And so over the edge, again, you use your remote control and you hit the stop button and you say, we need to stop for a little bit. I'm feeling really defensive and I won't be listening to you if we keep going. And I really want to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to hit stop. So you're going to hit that pause button or the stop button, and you're going to stop for a set amount of time. Like the Bible says, you want to give yourself some space to be able to really think it through. And so one of the things I've been doing with my wife is through the last few weeks, especially of this series, I've been sitting down and talking through the content with her. And I was talking through this part of this message with my wife this week, and I had my laptop open when I was typing. And Shanna, we talk about the differences between Shanna and I. Shanna is a quick processor. Something happens, she feels it right away, she knows what's going on, she knows how to articulate it. I am not fast. I know that something has happened, and I know that sometimes I feel something, and then it takes a long time to get to what's underneath that. So it's just a difference, right? Remember we talked about the perpetual problems? She's fast, quick processor, I'm not. So imagine how that comes out in conflict. So we were talking about this and talking about, taking a break, what the Bible says, slow down. And she said, well, it's hard for me to wait for you to get it. And this made us laugh so hard as she was saying it. She said, sometimes I feel like I need to verbally beat it into you. And like I said, we were laughing so hard. She said this. She said, I don't know if I can trust that you can get there without the verbal beating. So, of course, as she's saying this, I'm like, well, the trigger then, of course, what that does for me is defensiveness, stonewalling, all of those things, I flood. And then I almost guarantee I can't get there. Isn't it fascinating? It's like the tactics create the very thing we don't want to have happen. And yet, and so we talk about, hey, just hit the stop button. Well, you know who's easy? The people who flood easily, this is like our thing. Yeah, I'm in stop right now. Stop. It's like, oh yeah, stop. We're going to stop. We're going to stop for an hour, stop for a couple hours, stop for 24 hours, stop for 24 years. We're going to just stop, right? No more than 24 hours. You're coming back to talk about it within 24 hours. So for people like me, it's like, that's a helpful button. But my wife was saying, you know what it does to her? If we hit pause or stop, it creates enormous stress inside of her. And she said, like, if I hit the stop button and say, let's take a 30-minute break because I'm really feeling defensive, she would respect that and ruminate the entire time. She said, I got to be honest, that's my issue, she said. It's not yours, it's mine. But like we said last week, if you do that, you will not make it better. The Psalms isn't the only place in the Bible where it says that our anger is a problem. In the New Testament, there's a verse that says that man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. It doesn't bring positive change. So she said, for people like her and like herself, whatever you do to get your anger back down during that time is what you have to do. And you have to discover that. Because like it says, we don't want to let sin by letting anger control us in these times. Okay. The third thing that we've really learned about this is we learned to use repair phrases in our relationship. Because we want to repair it and de-escalate it. Now, in your program today, I have a second insert. As you can see, it says at the top, Gottman Repair Checklist. I don't know if you've looked at this yet. I highly recommend taking this out and putting it on the fridge. Hang it on the fridge. Put it somewhere prominent where you can look at this. And so these are different types of repair sentences that are designed to de-escalate conflict and tension, and some of the ones we've already talked about. I went through this list this last week, and just quickly at a glance, I found 10 that my wife and I use regularly. And there are probably more than that we use, and I just, they're not as regular. But this is critical to us. Like I said, we really take repair seriously. So take that, put it up somewhere so you don't forget about it, because the goal is to really learn how to use this. Because if you can repair your conflict, then it doesn't become an ongoing issue. So we had just another example of this in our relationship recently. So I made a mistake, 100% my fault. Okay, let me get that out there from the beginning. I had done something wrong. The mistake was pretty serious. If it wouldn't have been caught, it could have really, really been costly. And I'd done my No, I can't even say that. I had tried, and I just made a mistake. So, right? And so my wife is the one who caught the mistake and caught it before anything bad had happened. But when she saw that I had done it, it was a big deal. And she was heated up fairly quickly. And I was standing there, I'm like, oh my goodness, processing what I'd done and then also processing her anger. And I don't, like I said, am I a quick processor? No. So all of a sudden she's mad at me and I'm realizing what I could have done and I can't process it quickly. And so I'm kind of starting to flood. And when you flood, you lose all those things we talked about last week. You lose peripheral vision. You lose the ability to hear. Your IQ drops. You literally get dumber. So I'm getting dumber as she's standing there trying to get me to understand. Remember, she's got to beat it into me or else how will I ever get there? And so at one point she looks at me literally and says, look at me when I'm talking to you. And I'm like, huh? I didn't even realize it wasn't. So it's like, But then right at that moment we got interrupted. It was not, I was literally thinking, can we hit pause? I was literally thinking it, stopping because I knew what was happening now. I have words for this now. It's like, okay, we need to break. But she got interrupted and she had to go do something else right at that moment. And so I got to stand there alone for about 15 minutes or so and think about what had just happened and what she had said and what I'd done. And so it was like the energy got to get drained out of it right away. So once I felt calmer and really had thought it all through, I went and found her. She was alone. And I said to her basically, hey, I'm really sorry for what I did. I understand why you're mad and disappointed, and I understand how costly that could have been. I apologize. I am going to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen again in the future. And you should have watched. I mean, it was like literally the energy just drained right out of her. And she gave me a smile, and it was okay, and she received that repair. And an issue that could have been a big issue turned into a non-issue. And that's what you want. So here's some questions as we finish up today. Do you know how to repair your relationships after a conflict? Or are little things starting to stack up? How good are you at the repair? How clear are you about what's a solvable issue and what's an unsolvable issue? Are you trying to change them in an area that's just you're not changing that. It's a perpetual issue, and you're never changing it. So are you trying to do that, or are you treating them respectfully in the middle of those situations? Is it acceptable in your relationship to hit pause, stop, or rewind? I'm telling you, that one has been a super, super helpful tip for us. Just give yourself the ability in the conflict situation to go pause, stop, or rewind. And then is taking a break acceptable in your relationship? Only you can know this. Is it okay? Have you talked about what it might mean for each of you? Because like I said, for me, it's a great thing. Pause. But it's not a great thing for her. But still, not that she isn't willing to do it, but how do we make it so that it's really a good experience for both of us? What will it take when I hit stop for her to feel comfortable that I'm going to come back to it again? Let me have you bow your heads as we finish. This series has been so much about conflict, and all of Christianity begins because of an eternal conflict. It's so interesting. We don't see it. And it's because we have an unsolvable problem. We have a problem with God Almighty because He is a holy being and pure and perfect and loving. And you and I, like that verse in James says, we've all made many, 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 many mistakes, right? We have acted in unloving ways countless times in our lives, and those things have deeply wounded the heart of our God. And incredibly, in order to make peace in the relationship, God did all the work. He sent His only Son into this world 2,000 years ago to bleed and die on a cross for us. And what was happening on the cross that day is that our price was being paid in full so that we could have complete forgiveness and we could have peace with God. Now, this may be what some of you need next, is to let Him give you peace, His peace, through his son, Jesus Christ. And you can have that right now with your head bowed. You can say something like this in your heart to him. You can say, Jesus, I know I can't make this right without you. And I am completely in need of you. I'm asking for your gift of forgiveness in my life today. I want to put my life in your hands. And I want you to be the guide in my life going forward. Please make this right. In Jesus' name, amen. As we finish up today, can I ask you all to grab a little card out of your program, even if you're a regular attender. Just put your name down, let us know that you're here. But if you prayed and you asked Jesus to forgive you or renewed your commitment, let us know. Or if you have a prayer request you want us to pray about, maybe this is a tough topic for you. And maybe it's not even in a marriage relationship. It could be a work relationship, a friendship, a different family member. Please, we'll let us know. We'll pray for you. We've got a whole team of people that will pray. So then just drop this in one of the 2 offering boxes back on the back walls where you came in. So other than that, thanks for coming, and we hope to see you again next week.